I entered the luxury boutique located in the heart of Manhattan's Upper East Side, a space that breathed elegance from every corner. The white marble floor reflected my silhouette, my designer shoes making a soft click against the polished surface. My black dress, one of my own creations, wrapped me with the same confidence as my professional talent. The mannequins observed me like mute statues, silent witnesses to what was about to happen. A blonde employee, with impeccable makeup and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, looked at me with an expression I knew well, distressed. "Good morning," I pronounced with my firm voice. My refined accent resonated in a space perfumed with European essences. She looked me up and down. It wasn't the first time I had experienced that look that reduced me to a body, to a skin color, to a out-of-place presence. The designer dresses around me seemed to whisper secrets of exclusivity that apparently were not intended for me. "How can I help you?" she asked with a tone that oozed more condescension than kindness. At that moment, I felt she was not only evaluating me as a potential client, but judging me. My black skin seemed to be my only passport, and it was a document that for her had no validity in this luxury territory. I took a deep breath. I didn't come here to be intimidated. I came to demonstrate that my talent has no color, that my profession knows no racial limits. "I'm interested in seeing the new dress collection," I responded, maintaining my composure. Her gaze avoided mine, a subtle but devastating gesture. I had already been catalogued an intruder, someone who didn't belong. The tension in the boutique was palpable, like a thin film of prejudice floating among designer racks. The employee, whose name I read Emily, looked at me with a mixture of discomfort and veiled rejection. "Can I help you?" she repeated, this time with a more distant tone. Her eyes scanned my attire, searching for some imperfection, some signal that would confirm her preconception that I didn't belong there. I moved slowly between the dresses, my fingers delicately brushing the silk and velvet fabrics. Each garment was a work of art, and I knew every detail, every seam, every design line as if they were my own creations. A group of clients, all white and evidently of high purchasing power, looked at me sideways, their conversations turned into murmurs, their laughs into discreet whispers. I felt their gazes like tiny invisible needles, attempting to pierce my dignity. Emily approached again, this time maintaining a strategic distance. "Are you looking for something specific?" she asked, her voice distilling a false courtesy that barely concealed her discomfort. I decided to maintain my calm. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me intimidated. My presence there was not a grace, but a right. "I'm evaluating designs for my next collection," I responded with confidence, my firm voice cutting through the tense atmosphere like a scalpel. An uncomfortable silence settled between us. The battle had begun, and I was determined not to lose. How many invisible barriers would I have to traverse today to simply be seen as a professional? The mannequin seemed to observe me with a neutrality that contrasted with human hostility. Each step I took through the boutique was calculated, a chess move in this silent game of microaggressions. Emily pretended to be busy, but her gaze followed every one of my movements. I could feel her surveillance, that constant scrutiny seeking to find something suspicious in my presence. I stopped in front of a black dress with crystal details, my hand delicately brushing the fabric. I knew every type of fabric, every sewing technique. My fashion design training wasn't a purchase title, it was my passion, my life. A group of clients near me lowered their voices, not low enough that I couldn't hear. "What is she doing here?" One murmured, "She seems out of place." Another responded. I took a deep breath. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of showing my discomfort. My dignity was my best armor. Emily approached again, her posture rigid, her eyes avoiding mine. "Can I help you with anything else?" she asked, more like an order than an invitation. My fingers continued caressing the dress, admiring its construction. I knew that each centimeter of that model represented hours of work, dedication, art. "I'm appreciating the design," I responded, my voice cutting through the tense air like a silk whisper. How much more would I have to endure for my talent to be more visible than my skin color? The boutique silence had become another character, heavy and suffocating. Emily no longer tried to hide her annoyance. Her body language screamed louder than any words. She didn't want me there. I approached a display case with designer accessories. A white gold brooch with diamond inlays caught my attention. I observed it with the critical eye of a professional, analyzing every detail of its construction. "That item is not to be touched," Emily interrupted abruptly, almost jumping from her position. My hand, which had barely brushed the display case's glass, stopped, not because of her order, but because of the contained humiliation in her tone. Other clients began to stare. Some faces showed discomfort, others curiosity. I was a moment's spectacle, the intruder who dared to challenge the sacred space of Luxury, I was just admiring it, I responded, my voice controlled but firm. Emily approached, reducing the distance between us. Her expensive perfume couldn't hide the contained aggression. I think you're in the wrong place, she whispered, loud enough for others to hear. At that moment, I felt something boiling inside me. It wasn't anger, it was determination. I wasn't going to allow them to reduce me to a stereotype, to have my identity erased by their prejudices. My gaze pierced her, sharper than any of the crystals surrounding us. I was ready for the next move. Would this be the moment I would prove that my value goes beyond what their eyes can see? The tension in the boutique was a cord about to snap. Emily continued by my side, her presence more invasive than protective. Other clients were beginning to observe the silent theater unfolding between us. Miss, she said, I suggest you find another more appropriate establishment. Her word appropriate sounded like an insult wrapped in silk. My hands, which moments before had delicately caressed the designs, now tensed, not from fear, but from a contained rage. Threatening to explode, I slowly turned, confronting Emily with a look that could melt the display. Cases glass. Appropriate, I repeated, each syllable as sharp as a scalpel. I've been designing for the best brands in Latin America for years. A sepulchral silence fell over the store. The other clients, until now mute spectators, looked at me with a mixture of surprise and expectation. Emily took a step back, for the first time showing a crack in her armor of contempt. I don't understand. She stammerd. I opened my bag, pulling out a black leather folder. Inside, magazine clippings, awards, photographs from my fashion shows. My resume was a declaration of war against their prejudices. What you don't understand, I said, is that talent has no color. Emily's eyes began to change, from initial hostility to a mix of shame and astonishment. How many masks of prejudice would I have to tear off for them to see me as I truly am? All eyes in the boutique were fixed on me. Emily held my folder with trembling hands, each page revealing layers of my professional identity that completely challenged her initial perception. International fashion magazine clippings showed my designs, dresses that had walked in Paris, New York, Milan, awards with my name, photographs of models wearing my creations, interviews where I talked about my creative process. I'm Luciana Martinez, I said, independent designer, specialized in haute couture. The silence was so dense it could be cut with a pin. Other clients approached, curious, wanting to see the documents that completely transformed the narrative. Emily looked like a porcelain statue about to break. Her face reflected a shame that went beyond the moment. It was a reflection of years of deeply rooted prejudices. I'm so sorry, she mumbled, her voice broken. But I no longer needed her apologies. My truth had spoken louder than any discrimination. An elegant gentleman, who until that moment had remained silent, approached. He was a recognized buyer of the boutique. Miss Martinez, he said, would you mind showing me more about your work? At that moment, I felt that I had not only defended my space but had completely transformed the perception of everyone around me. How many more barriers would I have to tear down for my talent to be seen beyond my color? The boutique, previously a space of tension and prejudice, was transforming before my eyes. The elegant gentleman continued examining my portfolio, his expert gaze traversing every detail of my designs. Emily, now silent, seemed like a shadow of her previous attitude. Her movements were cautious, like someone walking on broken glass. These designs are extraordinary, the gentleman commented, pointing to a page with a gala dress I had presented at an international event. The technique, the elegance, truly impressive. The other clients, previously distant, now approached curiously. Their looks had changed from initial distrust to genuine interest. A young photographer in the store offered to take some images of my designs. His flashes began to illuminate the mannequins, capturing the essence of my work. Can I see more? Asked one of the clients who had previously looked at me with suspicion. I felt the environment changing, like a tide slowly reversing its direction. This was not a victory over Emily, but a victory over the prejudices that tried to define me. My hand caressed one of the dresses near me. Each stitch, each fold was part of my story. My struggle, my identity. Emily approached, this time with a completely different expression. There was no trace of her initial aggression. Could you show me more about your design process? She asked, her voice now full of genuine interest. Was this the moment when they would finally see me beyond first impressions? The transformation of the boutique was almost cinematic. Where there was tension before, genuine curiosity now reigned. Emily, completely changed, looked at me with a mixture of admiration and silent apology. Your designs are truly unique, commented the elegant gentleman, reviewing my portfolio with a professional magnifying glass. I began to explain my creative process, each word revealing layers of my training and passion. I spoke of my influences, how Afro-Argentine culture inspired my collections, about the challenges of being a black designer in a traditionally white fashion world. The clients listened, fascinated. The young photographer continued capturing every moment, every detail of my designs displayed in the boutique that had previously rejected me. "I've never seen such precise technique," murmured one of the women, examining a dress from my latest collection up close. Emily, who moments before was my greatest antagonist, now seemed the most interested. Her posture had changed completely, her eyes shining with genuine curiosity. "Can I offer you something?" she asked, this time with a completely different tone. It wasn't a protocol phrase, it was a genuine desire to connect. My hand brushed one of the dresses near me. Every inch of fabric was a declaration, every stitch a story of resistance. The boutique silence was now different. It was no longer dense with prejudices, but full of expectation and respect. How many more barriers would I have to tear down for my art to be seen beyond my color? The atmosphere in the boutique had changed completely. From initial hostility to a space of genuine, professional interest. The elegant gentleman, who I later learned was a renowned international buyer, couldn't stop examining my portfolio. "Miss Martinez," he said, adjusting his glasses, "your designs have a level of sophistication that I rarely see." Emily, now completely transformed, offered me a cup of coffee, a gesture that minutes before would have been unthinkable. Her look was no longer one of rejection, but of genuine amazement. "I have a proposal for you," he continued. "We represent international brands and are looking for emerging talents. Your work could be exactly what we're searching for." The other clients watched the scene, some with admiration, others with a mix of surprise and shame for their initial attitudes. An expectant silence filled the boutique. Every person seemed to hold their breath, waiting for my response. I looked around. The same mannequins that before seemed like mute witnesses to my humiliation now felt like silent allies. The dresses, the lights, every corner of the store seemed to have been transformed by the truth of my talent. "I would like to hear more," I responded, my voice firm and confident. Emily, leaning towards me, seemed to want to compensate for every dismissive look from before. "I apologize for my initial behavior," she whispered, her voice barely a murmur. Would this be the moment when my talent would finally break all the invisible chains of prejudice? The gentleman extended a card with an international fashion logo. His hands, covered in fine leather gloves, trembled slightly with emotion. "We want you to present your next collection in Paris," he said, his words cutting through the boutique silence. Like a precise scalpel, Emily watched the scene, her breath held. The other clients, previously distant, now looked at me as if I were a living revelation. "Your work," he continued, "challenges the conventional limits of design. The way you incorporate Afro-Argentine cultural elements is absolutely revolutionary." My fingers brushed one of my display designs. Each stitch, each fold, was a declaration of resistance. It wasn't just fashion, it was my story, my identity, and argot. I thought to myself, they treated me like an intruder. Now they're offering me an international contract. The young photographer continued capturing every moment. The flashes illuminated the boutique, transforming it from a space of prejudice to a stage of possibilities. One of the clients approached, holding one of my designs. "It's incredible," she murmured. "How a dress can tell so many stories." Emily, completely transformed, seemed to want to disappear. Her shame was more eloquent than any apology. The gentleman extended a contract. My hands took it, firm, confident. How many more barriers would I have to break for my talent to be larger than any prejudice? The contract gleamed under the boutique's lights, a document that represented much more than a commercial agreement. It was the tangible proof that my talent had triumphed over prejudice. "Paris awaits us," the gentleman said, his voice laden with emotion. Everyone's eyes followed every movement. Emily, now completely transformed, seemed to want to erase every second of her initial behavior. "I'm sorry," she whispered to me. "I truly regret everything that happened." My hands held the contract. I didn't need her apologies, my victory didn't depend on her remorse, but on my own talent. The photographer continued capturing the scene. Each flash was like a burst of light illuminating the transformation of the environment, from a space of discrimination to a stage of possibilities. "Your collection will be a revolution," commented one of the clients who had previously looked at me with suspicion. I looked around. The mannequins, the dresses, the white walls of the boutique. Everything seemed different now. It wasn't just a physical change, it was a profound transformation. The gentleman handed me his card. His hands, covered by leather gloves, looked at me with a respect that went beyond the professional. "See you in Paris," he said, his voice firm and expectant. Silence filled the boutique. Every person seemed to hold their breath, aware that they had witnessed something more than a job offer. Would this be the moment when my identity would become my greatest strength? Asterisk the boutique continued to be a stage of transformation. The initial silence had turned into a murmur of admiration and amazement. Her story is incredible, commented one of the clients. Now completely won over by my work, I looked around. The same spaces up moments before had rejected me now celebrated me. Every corner, every display case, every mannequin seemed to tell a story of overcoming. Emily, still, with shame painted on her face, couldn't stop watching me. Her silence was more eloquent than any words. The gentleman with the international card remained by my side. Like an unexpected ally in this battle against prejudices in Paris, he told me, "Your collection will be a revolution." My fingers brushed one of my designs again. Each stitch, each fold was a testimony of resistance. It wasn't just fashion, it was my story, my identity, my struggle. The photographer continued capturing every moment. His flashes illuminated not only the scene but the invisible layers of discrimination I had just broken. Never again, I thought to myself, will I let anyone define my limits. The boutique, once a space of rejection, was now my stage of triumph. Every gaze that had previously discriminated against me now admired me. How many stories like mine remained to be told, to be revealed? Asterisk the transformation was complete. The boutique, once a territory of prejudices, was now a space of recognition. Every corner seemed to tell my story of resistance. Your work represents more than fashion, the gentleman said. It's a cultural statement. My designs, now proudly displayed, revealed fragments of my Afro-Argentine identity. Each piece was a testimony of my heritage, my roots, my struggle. Emily looked at me with a mixture of admiration and shame. Her previous silence had been replaced by profound respect. The clients, once distant, now surrounded me, wanting to know more about my creative process. Their gazes had changed from initial discrimination to genuine interest. "I've never seen anything so authentic," one of them commented, delicately touching one of my dresses. The photographer continued capturing every moment. His flashes illuminated not only the scene but the invisible layers of discrimination I had dismantled. The Paris contract gleamed on a glass table, a symbol of my professional triumph. More than a document, it was a declaration that talent knows no borders or prejudices. This is more than an opportunity, I thought. It's a message for all the young women who were silenced. My gaze traversed the boutique. The mannequins, once mute witnesses to my humiliation, now seemed like my silent allies. How many more barriers would I have to break for my story to inspire others? Asterisk the atmosphere in the boutique had been completely transformed. Where tension once existed, a climate of celebration and recognition now reigned. "Your work is extraordinary," repeated the gentleman from the international agency, examining every detail of my designs. Emily, completely changed, offered me a coffee. Her hands trembled slightly, as if she still couldn't believe the transformation that had occurred. The clients, previously distant, now competed to be photographed with my designs. Each dress was a story, each stitch a declaration of resistance. "I've never seen anything so authentic," one of them commented, adjusting a black dress with gold details that represented my Afro-Argentine culture. The photographer continued documenting every moment. His flashes captured not just images, but the breaking of invisible barriers. This goes beyond fashion, I thought to myself. It's a message of hope. The Paris contract gleamed on the crystal table. More than a document, it was a symbol of personal and collective victory. One of the younger clients approached me, tears in her eyes. "You show us that dreams have no color," she said, her voice broken with emotion. The mannequins, once mute witnesses to my discrimination, now seemed like my silent allies. Each one held a dress that told a story of overcoming. How many stories like mine are waiting to be told? Asterisk the boutique had become more than a fashion space. It was a stage of transformation, revelation, hope. "Your story will change many lives," the international representative told me, his eyes shining with emotion. Emily, completely transformed, looked at me with a respect that went beyond words. Her previous silence had been replaced by genuine admiration. Clients surrounded my designs, each dress a declaration, each stitch a story of resistance. The mannequins, once mute witnesses of discrimination, now seemed like my allies. This is more than fashion, I thought. It's a message of hope for those who have been silenced. The Paris contract gleamed like a trophy. More than a document, it was a symbol of personal and collective victory. A young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "You show us that dreams have no color," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. The photographer's flashes captured every moment of this historic transformation. And now, looking directly into the camera, "I want to speak to you, who are watching me. Have you ever experienced racism? Have you felt that invisible weight that tries to define you by your appearance? This is not just my story. It's a call for reflection. If you've lived through discrimination situations, I want you to know that you are not alone, your experience matters, your pain matters. Your story deserves to be told. Share your experience in the comments. Use the hashtags #breaking silent racism, #resistance stories. Together we can create a movement of visibility and hope. Remember, your worth is not defined by the color of your skin, but by the strength of your spirit.